Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Back Lot Banter, your favorite movie review channel on the internet. I'm your host, Tanner Dykstra, joined here by an uncommon guest, but a welcome one, Sam Meltzer. We're here
Hello.
today to talk about the newest Todd Haynes film, which just hit Netflix over the weekend. That film is May December, starring Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, and Charles Melton. Now, before we get into it, I want to remind everyone to, hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment your thoughts on this film down below, and if you'd like to talk more in depth about this film, or any film or video game, or whatever in particular, we have a Discord channel. That link is down in the description. So, with that all out of the way, sorry, I'm so used to saying Tucker. Sam, let's get into talking about May December, a film that you haven't seen for a number of months because you saw it way back in September, and I have just recently seen it with the rest of the groveling masses when it came to Netflix. But I guess Sam, just briefly tell me a little bit about your experience watching May December at the New York Film Festival.
Yeah, I took my friend Kate to as the plus one. It was the opening night selection at the New York Film Festival. Todd Haynes was there. And New York is the perfect crowd for this kind of movie. They love Todd Haynes, they love these actors. It's just a total blast. And the crowd was really enthusiastic. It was opening night, so there was a lot of enthusiasm in that room. It was just a great vibe. And it was awesome. Uh, I know it's been sort of controversial on Twitter to talk about this recently for no good reason,
Uh huh.
but it is funny. The producer of the movie literally tweeted, "This movie is intentionally funny."
Sure.
I think I completely agree with that. It's a comedy. Like
Yeah.
if I support molestation and underage relationships because I think this movie is camp and funny, then I support molestation and underage relationships.
Okay, well,
Because
we'll ask people not to clip that particular sentence there, Sam. But I appreciate the sentiment of what you're saying of defending this film as camp and yes, as comedic because as you're right, yeah, that has been a bit of a talking point on Twitter as of late. So I did want to get into the specifics of the film as well. So you want to start there? You want to start with how it is camp and funny in parts? Because I think I would tend to agree. I was chuckling a number of times at the film, but of course it also is very harrowing in moments, or for a lot of it. And the subject matter is obviously very dark and heavy. My girlfriend was actually planning on watching this with us. She asked what it was about. I explained the premise of the story to her, and then she was no longer interested in watching the film. So I think I think there is that a bit of that element to May December, in that it does feel a bit, I don't know, edgy for lack of a better word. It is dealing with some things, but it deals with them so deftly, I think, is the real thing about Todd Haynes' new film. And how he sort of can blend moods and genres in this. And how he sort of incorporates like our understanding of how this kind of story is told. There's a lot of sort of like he knows that this story is titillating, and within the world of the film, the story is titillating, and that's sort of like Natalie Portman character's whole thing is that she is like sort of engrossed by the pure like I don't know, the pure like just oddity of this story, and how everyone in the tabloids was obsessed with it as well. And I think how Todd Haynes meditates on like how actors and maybe the public in general wants to think like, oh, we can take a more high-minded approach to this kind of thing, when at the end of the day we're all just like, ooh, tell me more, and then grabbing our bowl of popcorn and shoving it in our mouth.
it is a lot of fun, as you say, and also harrowing. I think the melodrama makes it all, I don't want to say acceptable, but compelling because the tone of the movie is often exaggerated and the second the movie opens, the score is the most intense and
It's
melodramatic thing
very
you've ever
very
heard.
heightened, yes.
It's actually a completely reused score from The Go-Between, which is a period drama from
Interesting.
1971. It's a great score. It's so good. I think the score is funny. Like I
Yeah.
think the score makes the film funnier. But because it's so melodramatic and it's so assured in its tone, both the depressing and hysterical elements of the film work and synthesize. I think Haynes knows exactly what kind of story he wants to tell.
Hmm.
He's made many movies like this that have a lot of melodrama and intense emotional breakdowns of their characters that are also hysterical.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of things that Julianne Moore says in this movie that
Yes.
are really funny. There's a scene when they're at a clothing store and it's this gorgeous long take
Hmm.
where they're just talking and you see them through the mirror. And you see how, Portman's character is mimicking her motions to try and be more like her.
Yes.
But
There's a lot of that in the
also,
film too. Yeah.
yeah, but also in that scene, Julianne Moore's daughter comes out with a dress. And
Yes.
in the most subtly and internalized way, Julianne Moore goes, "Oh, you're so brave to show your arms. I would never
Yeah,
have been able to do that."
to not apply, to not sort of bend to the modern day beauty standards. I've seen many people sort of on Twitter especially reacting to that moment in a, oh, Todd Haynes perfectly translates what it's like to have a mother of that generation talking to their daughter in a moment like that. So I think that there is a lot of that realism in the film, and when he decides to employ it, it's very impactful. I think he decides to employ it a lot of times when it comes to Charles Melton's character, Joe, who it seems is the fan favorite of this film. He is, he is definitely the most sympathetic, the most grounded, and the most realistic character here. And I think he's fantastic. I mean, he was very much hyped up for me. I watched this a day after it hit Netflix, so I got the full brunt of people clipping his moments on Twitter. People saying Charles Melton, he's coming for Robert Downey Jr.'s Oscar. And we can talk about Oscar chances after we're done reviewing it here. But I was like, it was very much hyped up for me, and he sort of gets drip fed to you. I would say in the narrative, and the brunt of his like heavy emotional stuff comes at the end, and it still hits you like a truck. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's incredibly sensitive and kind, and there's a whole aspect of the story revolving butterflies.
Yes.
And that was really interesting, especially regarding how the film concludes. Because a lot of people have said this is not an original thought, but that character is did not get a chance to grow up.
Yes.
He was essentially isolated from all real world situations and then went back to the one situation that caused his life to become like that.
Yeah.
Therefore, the seclusion didn't allow him to progress as an adult. And you see how that's reflected in the relationship he has with himself
Hmm.
and the relationship that he has in particular with his son that I thought was incredibly moving
Hmm.
and harrowing. And just the looks he gives, there's something kind of deadpan about it, but also sweet and innocent. And it's this incredibly nuanced and masterful stare and glow that he has. And I think that he does end up giving my favorite performance of this movie, maybe
Yeah.
just on par with Natalie, because of the way that character is written and how well he adapted to it. Because that's a really difficult and off role to play.
It really is, and he plays it. It's written in such an interesting way too, and I think Charles Melton really masters it, especially when he's going up against fucking Academy and film fan favorites like Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, and everyone kind of knows him as like, oh, he's the guy from Riverdale doing his first serious movie now, and he's amazing because there are moments where he hasn't fully gotten into, oh, he's crying. He is coming to terms with what the true impact of the past 2 decades of his life are and what they mean. And they come across in moments like, I don't know if you remember the scene, Sam, where he's talking to his father, and they're just like, his dad's just like sort of very removed from the whole situation,
Mm,
and they're just smoking on the patio. And Charles Melton
yeah.
just picks up a cigarette and starts smoking too, because he's like, he gives it the impression of someone who is so lost and so adrift in his own life. I think that's what makes him so compelling and so sympathetic. Is you're like, This guy has no idea what to do with himself. He has just sort of been sleepwalking through the past 24 years of this marriage and his relationship with Julianne Moore because she robbed him of his like youth and growing up and
Mm.
experiencing things on like with people of his generation and people in his peers and everything. And I think the thing that grounds him, and I think this is so expert in what the story tells, is his children.
Mm.
They have an older daughter who Julianne Moore was pregnant with when she was in prison, and then they have twins as well who are graduating high school in this film. And you can feel him come to the realization that once his twins are off to college and they're empty nesters, as people say a lot in this film, he has nothing. Like, he
Mm.
has his butterflies, but that's really just a distraction for him. And that's what, like, that and Natalie Portman's arrival is what really spurs him on as, like, oh shit, like, and that's what, there's a whole scene at the end when he's questioning Julianne Moore, and she comes back at him with, like, the claws of manipulation out. And I think Julianne Moore is fantastic in this film, too.
I really like everything you said about Charles Melton. I also think the film makes an interesting point because if you peak in middle school, if like middle school is the peak of your life, then you're just
Mm,
not going to be a successful person. Middle
no.
school is the worst time in your life. It is absolute, it's
Yes.
traumatic and terrible. Everything absolutely sucks. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you peak in middle school. And when your middle school self does not tr like communicate and develop, and you are in this awkward in between, but you shouldn't be in an in between because you're an adult with children and a wife.
Hmm.
And I don't know, like, and it's so interesting that we're digging so much into this because the primary thesis of the movie is that Natalie Portman is an actress playing Julianne Moore's character.
Yes,
It's a
I
very
want to get to
layered
that.
movie
Yeah,
with a lot
yeah.
of interesting scenes that's structured really well. And rarely have I seen a supporting player given a focus and depth so intensely.
Yeah.
And that's why I think like he should be winning the Oscar
Yeah.
because it's a performance that doesn't it's very once in a lifetime. Like this is a really rare and special
Yeah. 100%.
performance.
I want to talk about Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman here, as sort of a dueling dyad of forces and who's in charge and who's playing who is a really interesting question that I have heard a number of people bring up about this film. In that, obviously, the in for the story is Natalie Portman is an actress who's going to be playing Julianne Moore's character Gracie in a film, adapting like the early years of their that relationship. If I guess that's a fair word to use, but it's still like she was a sexual predator of a 13-year-old boy. So there you go, and she arrives in this scenario, and Julianne Moore is so good at playing this character of Gracie in this like affable yet confident yet I don't understand why you're bringing this up kind of way. Like she a number of people bring it up that like she's just like so set in her ways and like set in her life and looking forward. I think one of the earliest conversations they have is that she does not dwell on the past at all, which is a crazy thing to say for someone whose entire life, who years of their life was sort of recounted in tabloids and TV movies and things like that. And Natalie Portman comes in and she tries to give off this impression, the character does, I should say, that she is taking this like very artsy, very high-minded approach to this life, and like I'm getting all of these different perspectives, and I'm putting it all into this character, and I love the ending of how Todd Haynes flips that, but you still get throughout the film you get this feeling of like you're so enamored by Julianne Moore that she is controlling your perception of her no matter what you do.
Hmm. And Natalie Portman, the reveal at the end, I mean, enough people have seen this, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
can
fine. We
talk
can
about
spoil
this.
it.
It really did remind me of Tar
It is.
because
Yes, 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 yes.
because all this time you're watching her, you literally see her give like this amazing 2 minute monologue just looking at the camera, replicating her.
Hmm.
And then the end happens and you see like them filming the movie. And she's like a bad daytime television actress.
Yeah.
She's not like an established movie star.
No, no, no.
She's
I
like a
mean,
bad actress.
there's
And
this the kids at Joe and Gracie's home sort of approach her as like, oh, she's so famous, but the show that she talked about with Joe as well is like it's like Grey's Anatomy, but she's a veterinarian where she like does surgery on an elephant, and you're like, what? And then yeah, it comes around at the end, you're like, oh, this is like identical to that shitty TV movie from the 80s that she was watching about the same subject. Like, there's nothing elevated or even-handed or I guess artistic about what she's doing.
no.
It's still trading in that same titillation, that same like tabloid nature of this story that it's always been viewed with the lens from. And it's so brilliant to end the movie with that because we have learned about these people and we've seen Charles Melton sort of break down as he realizes that his life is kind of over at the age of 36 and that he has been taken advantage of and used and manipulated. And we see the way that Natalie Portman plays Julianne Moore and how they've directed this nameless sort of teenage actor to play Joe. And it's just like all the layers are stripped away. It's still like, ooh, the sultry teacher or the sultry older woman coming on to the young boy. Like,
Right.
there is no nuance to the
No.
character that she's playing, even coming off of, talking with Gracie. And
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on Gracie as a character, as long or as briefly as you'd like, I guess.
No, I mean, the lisp is iconic.
Yeah.
And no, I just think that like the way this movie played out, it almost, oddly enough, reminded me of that SNL skit where Emma Stone plays the woman who walks in on her husband cheating in the porn video, and
Oh,
she's
sure.
like going crazy about how she's gonna play this woman who sees her husband cheating and like
Yeah. Oh,
like
yes,
trying
yes,
to find
yes.
her inner character, and then it's just like a
Yes.
porno.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar, and it definitely like discusses the way that media reduces the nuances and the
Hmm.
complexities and the realities of these people's lives, and how in so many biopics we see such a small portion and such a like glamorized version that's
Hmm.
very one-dimensional of the artist's life. And this movie very much commented on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Gracie, love Julianne Moore. She's so
Hmm.
good in this movie. It's such a weird woman who is so
Yes.
completely herself, so unbothered and so confident, has absolutely no opinion on what anyone else thinks of her.
Hmm.
And whenever she cries about something, it doesn't have to do with like the societal pressure or social pressure that she's facing.
She's like such an ultimate narcissist in this film.
Yeah.
Like when Joe towards the end of the film when Joe comes in on her like sort of like sobbing on the bed, you're like, oh God, what happened? Is she sort of overwhelmed with the fact that Natalie Portman's like going to betray her and not going to be fair towards her in her life? She's like, no, she's crying because one of her clients for her baking business canceled on her.
Yeah. She's so not that she's unaware of what's going on, but
Yeah,
it doesn't matter to her. It's
yeah.
irrelevant.
And I think it's because she is so subtly a master manipulator, and I love it so much that it's that like southern charm that she puts on, and she when she's talking about it. This is like sort of like almost a comedic running bit until it gets sort of like darkly twisted towards the end. Whenever she brings up one of her brothers, and it pays off. Well, it's the rule of threes in comedy. The third time she brings up her brother, Natalie Portman's like, how many brothers do you have? She's like four, two older, two younger. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's a fun little like running bit. And then Corey Michael Smith, who plays her son, Julianne Moore's son from her first marriage in this film, sort of says he says to Natalie Portman like, yeah, she was sexually abused by her brothers when she was a kid for years, and you're not really sure because he's sort of out for his own ends as well. He sort of gets described as a selfish kind of character, but in that moment you believe him, or at least I did, that is an explanation for her behavior.
Mm,
And also sort of maybe an explanation why she, a deep psychological explanation as to why she felt she needed to engage in a sexual relationship with a 13-year-old, sort of continuing that cycle of sexual violence. And then at the end, at the graduation ceremony, Julianne Moore is like, "Oh, I talked to my son. Yeah, I'm sorry he told you that. That's so disgusting." What do you mean? I talk to him every day. Like, she is, as much as she likes to like put on this like nice, charming Southern housewife sort of demeanor, she is a puppet master of
oh
everyone in
yeah.
her life.
Hmm. And Natalie Portman is kind of the blank slate here.
Yeah,
But someone said this, and I thought it was brilliant. It might not be her best performance, even though I kind of think it is.
sure.
It's certainly her most Natalie Portman performance. That
Yeah,
doesn't,
okay.
I don't know how much sense that makes, but it just feels so her.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. So
Yeah,
good.
and you see, I mentioned it a couple times, but you just like see her get sort of like sucked into this life and become sort of a pawn in Julianne Moore's game, and then when she realizes it at the graduation ceremony right before she leaves, that what it's like. Oh, when Julianne Moore says, "I talk to him every day," it clicks with her that Julianne Moore is always in control of these sort of interactions,
Mm,
and then at that point it's too late. Like, it's already like that idea of her is already stuck in her mind, and the film that she goes on to play her in does not give her the opportunity to display that nuance. And I think it's that repeated take that because Natalie Portman at the end again asks for one more take as well, and
mm.
she's like, she just can't figure out, because she's not a very good actress in the film. The character, I should restate, the character is not a good actress, and B, the film does not call for it. That she's like, I feel like I need to display this sort of manipulation in the character, but she can't because she can't understand it, and she's too close to it. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's just an expertly
And
like
maybe she
written.
sympathized with her a little bit.
That's also entirely possible. But yeah, it's just an expertly constructed and like thematically narrativized film that I really loved.
Same.
Sam, we do scores on this show if we want to wrap it up, unless you have any closing thoughts as well. Okay. I'm going to go on May, December. I'm going to go a 9.4.
So specific.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, we do specifics here.
I'd probably do an 8, like out of
Okay.
10, like with solids, but maybe a
Yeah,
9
that's
on
fair.
rewatch.
Sure,
Closer
that's
to a
fine.
9 than a 7.
I've also heard a lot of people say, like, oh, it gets way better on a rewatch. And I'm
I'm
sure it
sure.
does when you have all that character context from the end of the film and you can sort of layer it in throughout the first two-thirds, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, loved it. Now, Sam, I did promise that we would talk about Oscar chances at the end of this video, so let's do it because, and you mentioned it, let's talk about Charles Melton. He's the big one that everyone's talking about. So, weeks ago now, when he was first starting to get some real serious buzz about this, I was like, I'm putting him in. I'm taking out Willem Dafoe of my supporting actor 5. I'm putting in Charles Melton. Um, I don't buy that he's going to win, that he has sort of nabbed Robert Downey Jr. or Ryan Gosling's Oscar, but I'm sympathetic to the argument. So if you do believe that, I'm ready to hear it.
I don't think he's winning.
Okay, okay.
I don't know if he's going to get nominated because the 5 that everyone had before is just makes so much sense to me.
Sure.
I've seen all of them, and like I don't know who wouldn't get it. But I mean he definitely can. Like I see him getting it at the end, but I don't think it's getting picture, and that's why I don't
Okay.
think he'll win.
Gotcha.
And Natalie Julianne, I don't know.
They're like, Julianne is number 6 for me. And I think I bumped Natalie Portman up to number 6 as well. I put her over who did I have there? Oh, Kaylee Spaney and Priscilla.
I don't
Um,
think Natalie Portman would get it. Like, again, the actresses are maybes. I'm more certain on Charles Melton, but I kind
yeah,
of
I
think that
think
this would
Charles
get
Melton.
screenplay. I think that
Yeah.
like original screenplay is the one category I'm like, yeah, like that'll get nominated.
And here's my thing though, Sam, because I agree. I think it gets in original screenplay, and I do think it gets in supporting actor. With those two, why aren't we putting it over like past lives in Best
The
Picture?
Lost Daughter.
Okay, okay, I see your point.
Netflix
But let,
movie, not their top priority. It's like their number
yeah,
two, and it has
okay.
passion, but it's like Maestro's getting a lot more money from them
It
and
is. That's true.
screenings.
Yeah. And
It
that's
can
a fair
happen
point.
though. I'm not like opposed to it,
Yeah.
but
I just think
I don't
like
really
on
know.
a purely numbers level, Past Lives is getting original screenplay. May December's getting original screenplay supporting actor most likely. I think that seems to be the controlling narrative right now. So on a purely numbers level, I'm like, it's got two nominations over Past Lives one. It's having its moment a lot later than Past Lives had its moment. So at that point, I'm really kind of leaning towards the camp of putting May December in over Past Lives in Best Picture.
I don't know if either of them would get nominated. I could see both of them missing in a second, and I
Sure,
think too
that's
many
fair.
people like Past Lives too much to take it out.
Okay.
I think Past Lives could so easily get snubbed, and no one is really thinking about that. And I'm like, hello, like when was the
Yeah,
last time a romance got nominated
that's
that
fair.
was
Yeah,
this indie? Like
I
it's
think
not, it doesn't happen.
it might be getting like grandfathered in a lot of predictions. I think, and this is more really getting into Past Lives' Oscar chances. But so I don't know. I think that I just think there's as there often is in Best Picture now with the locked in 10 slots, there is a sort of like revolving group of like 8, 9, 10 films that there's a good case for a number of them getting in.
Yeah,
I think Past
I
Lives is
think
in
it's
there.
possible, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Past Lives is in there, and I'm even becoming sympathetic again to the argument that May December is above Past Lives in the sort of the pecking order for one of those spots.
I have no idea. I
Yeah,
really have no idea.
but yeah, love May December. It's looking to have some like small yet solid Oscar chances, I'd say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hope Charles
um,
Melton gets it.
I think so too. So put your thoughts on May December down in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. This is one that I want to hear your thoughts on every small character interaction and note and like small glance or facial twitch or whatever because I think it is Todd Haynes is a very actor-minded director, and I think there's a lot of that in there, which is why I'm like maybe even hoping for it to get in Best Picture because that means that I get to rewatch it when it comes time to do all the nominees for Quest for the Bestest here on Back Lot Banter. But Sam, thank you so much for joining me for this review of May December.
Thank you for having
I
me.
love talking movies with you. I love talking Oscar predictions with you. Hopefully, we'll get some more chances to do that in the future. And you, dear audience member, should stay tuned for that. Thanks.